All right, so 2023's Plane is directed by Jean-Francois Richet. Hopefully I'm saying that name right. Screenplay by Charles Cumming and J.P. Davis, and is about a pilot who finds himself caught in a war zone after he is forced to land his commercial aircraft during a storm. It stars Gerard Butler as Brody Torrance and Mike Colter as Louis Gaspar, and the villain of the film, Evan Dane Taylor, who plays Junmar. And this is a really interesting film because from the title and the trailers alone, it just looked really generic action movie. It kind of looked like one of those movies you'd lump in with, the typical Liam Neeson movie that comes out, once, twice, maybe three times a year. That is just kind of generic and forgettable. You got these typical actors that star in these types of films that aren't typically like the biggest of high budget films. They aren't necessarily blockbusters, but sometimes you get these types of films that you don't expect much from, and you go into it and you're pleasantly surprised. And honestly, that is the case for this movie. I do have a few complaints about the film, but they aren't huge complaints. I'll get to those in a bit. But for now, I kind of just want to talk about how really good this film. I was about to say great, but how very, very good this film was. So yeah, you have Gerard Butler, who plays the captain of this film, Brody Torrance, the captain of the plane that he was flying. Also in there, I wanted to mention Joey Slotnick as Sinclair. I believe that's the actor that played the co-pilot. He was also really great. But yeah, Gerard Butler in this movie, he's one of those actors that people tend to kind of lump together with people like Liam Neeson and those types of actors that do really forgettable action movies. And maybe you're offended by me saying that about Liam Neeson. Maybe he's your favorite actor. I'm sorry, but there's just so many films that I see from Liam Neeson that just look so forgettable and nobody really ends up watching. And I feel like Gerard Butler kind of gets those types of movies nowadays, which is unfortunate, but he is still a great actor. There is one movie from 2021 called Greenland. It's a disaster film. And typically when people think of disaster films, they're like, oh, great, 2012 or some shit like that. But no, that movie is actually really, really well done. So I would highly recommend checking out 2021's Greenland if you have the time. And especially if you've watched Plane and you're looking for another Gerard Butler flick, definitely one I would recommend. But yeah, Mike Colter, some people might know for playing Luke Cage on the Netflix series. Yeah, he's really great in this film. Basically with his character, I think they say it in the trailer, but his character is this guy who gets brought in onto the plane last minute by this FBI guy saying, hey, we need to transport him. He's a convicted murderer. He's about to go to trial. Maybe, he's still potentially dangerous, but also might go free. Or at least that's what I took from what they were saying. But yeah, he gets brought in handcuffs. You're supposed to think, oh yeah, this guy is dangerous. He's going to be the bad guy of the film. But no, he ends up being helpful, and they show that in the trailer too, so they kind of give that away. But yeah, I think they're both really great in this film, Gerard Butler and Mike Colter. I think they are definitely a dynamic duo. Yeah, I mean, they're really fun to watch in this movie. They're both badass. They're both big and tough. Mike Colter a little bit more than Gerard Butler. That dude is jacked. He looks great. I hope he comes back as Luke Cage, by the way. I really do, because I only watched the first season of that show, but I really did like him in that show. But yeah, the villain here, Evan Dane Taylor, who plays Junmar. It's kind of interesting because the way that what happens with the plane essentially is that they land on this island, and it's part of the Philippines, but the Philippines have tried to get these essentially mercenaries out of there, haven't been successful. So it's taken over by these mercenaries, and they are not good people. And it played on so many fears, like my fear of, being in a plane crash or having a plane be hijacked. And then not only that, but crashing the plane somewhere that's dangerous, where things are trying to kill you. That's terrifying to me. And, I think the aspect about this movie that, made me the most anxious, because I had anxiety throughout this entire film pretty much. I was on the edge of my seat. My heart was beating. I was really in it pretty much the whole runtime. The thing about it is just it feels like something that could actually happen. It's not based on a true story, but while I was watching it, I was like, I feel like this could potentially happen. There's some aspects that feel a little, a little goofy and definitely made for a movie that wouldn't happen in real life, which I'll get to in a second. Just a couple things. It's not even really a bad thing, but again, um, yeah, edge of my seat the whole time. It played on certain fears that I have. It's really an interesting concept because there's the movie Fall that came out last year that played on my fear of heights, and this movie here played on my fear of plane crashes. And I don't know, this movie kind of did a little more for me than Fall did, I would say, in the sense that it just like had me on the edge of my seat. I was like scared, especially in the plane crash scene. Like I felt like I was in the cockpit the whole time. I felt like I was in the plane, and luckily the speakers were good because the audio also in the film that they do, the plane audio. I mean, even if you haven't been on a plane, you kind of know the sound that a plane makes when you're in it. It's really relaxing. By the way, I've fallen asleep to it before on YouTube, like 12-hour versions. But yeah, I mean, with the way they edit the sound in here and the way it comes through in the speakers, at least in the theater that I was in, it literally made you feel like you were in the plane. And when there was like lightning and stuff like that crashing, cracking onto the plane and whatnot, like plane getting hit by lightning, I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. That whole sequence, I was just like curled up in my seat. I was terrified. It's hard for me to explain this because this movie kind of terrified me more than some horror movies do. Maybe it's because with horror movies, it's like it's ghosts and demons and shit like that with a lot of those types of films, unrealistic stuff. And in this, it scares me because again, it feels like something that could actually happen. And something that could have potentially happened. Who knows? Maybe there's a flight that went missing. I mean, there have been flights that went missing, so who knows? Something like this could have happened before. And maybe they even took some inspiration from that. Um, but yeah, that's just a scary thought that this film, even with some of its goofiness at times, even with some of its action movie tropes, still has things that are plausible. So yeah, it took me a minute to get there. Sorry about that. But yeah, like I said, the title of the film alone is really generic, plain. But they say plain a lot in this movie, so it's pretty perfect, honestly. But yeah, the trailer was kind of generic as well. I just when I saw it, I was like, I don't even know if I'm gonna watch that movie. But I heard one review from Double Toasted that said that the plane crash scene at least was really good, and that was enough I needed to hear to want me to go see it. That makes sense. There we go. But it's full of suspense from start to finish. I think it might even scare some people if you have a fear of flying and stuff like that. It might be a little bit too much for you in those scenes. Um, and I'm trying to like kind of dodge spoilers too because there's certain elements of this film that I keep wanting to say, but I don't want to because it's a spoiler. So if it sounds like I'm stuttering and stuff, it's because I'm trying to like dodge around certain spoilers because I do want people to go watch this. I think it is worth watching in the theater. Spoiler alert to my ranking, but yeah, I mean, let me see here. The ending of the film kind of left some things open-ended, and with a film like this, it's most likely not going to get a sequel, not because it doesn't make enough money, but because they aren't really gonna they don't want to make a sequel for this movie, most likely, unless it makes like $1 billion. This movie isn't gonna get a sequel. So there's certain things that they kind of left a little open-ended at the end, mainly with never mind. Again, trying to dodge around certain things, but there's one thing with one character in particular that they left a little open-ended, and I don't know. I would have liked to see a little bit of payoff from that at the end, but again, it's not the biggest complaint I have, I guess. And then another kind of complaint I have is they do have humor in this film. It's sprinkled throughout. There are moments that, a little bit of levity in all the suspense and all the drama. That are very much needed because with Gerard Butler's character as a captain, captains are naturally kind of like charismatic and kind of funny and telling bad dad jokes in a way. Like if you've been on certain flights, you kind of know what kind of captain I'm talking about. I feel like people have experienced that in one way or another, but he's that kind of guy. And even after the plane crash, he has those moments. And even Mike Colter's character kind of has those moments, like a little back and forth between, both characters, which I very much liked and added some levity. So the comedy in that aspect worked. But the other aspects of comedy are when people are dying and it's playing off like almost a Deadpool movie in a way. I have to spoil this one scene. It's not like a huge spoiler, but there's this part where some people are getting shot from a long distance by a sniper. And this has to be like the most powerful sniper I've ever seen. If anybody knows their guns, tell me down in the comments below. But it's literally like shooting these dudes through a car and it's just like rocketing and they're just like falling back. Like they're like shoved back into the car behind them. I'm like, I don't think that would actually happen, but maybe I'm wrong. It just made it look so goofy. It's mainly with the kills in this movie that people were laughing at the most. I was laughing at because I was just like, I mean, and it kind of works too because with the like light comedic tone of the dialogue, with the slight comedic tone of the of some of the kills, it makes it kind of fun. But at the same time, when a lot of the other movie is played very seriously and very suspensefully, um, it doesn't always feel tonally the same as the rest of the movie, if that makes sense. But it's not the biggest complaint because it was very satisfying to watch those people die in that way. It was really funny. Just thinking about it now makes me want to watch that. Oh my God. I'm sorry. It's just too funny though. It is hilarious. Um, yeah, and there's one other scene that's possibly even funnier than that, but just the idea of people being shot through a car by a sniper from a long distance and just like shooting back like a cartoon. It's hilarious to me. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I need to stop. But yeah, when it comes to the fighting, I mean, it's mainly shooting guns, of course. I mean, in the thumbnail of the video, you see the two main characters holding guns. So it's a lot of shooting back and forth, but there are some moments of hand-to-hand combat, mainly towards the beginning with Gerard Butler's character, where it's just him and one other like bad guy that he's trying to take down. And the way they film it, other movies have tried to film fight choreography this way before and have completely failed just by not being able to show anything. But the way that the camera is, it's like up close with the fights, but you still see like every movement. It's done so well for a film like this that might go under the radar for a lot of people. Like it's one of those moments I could see in Corridor Crew, stuntman reacts. I would love for them to react to that once this movie, is available to the public, via VOD, I should say. But yeah, some really, really well choreographed and well shot fight scenes in there when it comes to the hand-to-hand combats. When it comes to guns, I mean, there's only so much you can really do because it's not as close and you don't really notice it as much. But that's just one thing I appreciated there. I don't often notice really good fight choreography in films like this, of this caliber. And I just really appreciated that because they didn't have to do that. They could have easily just, move the camera a little bit from a distance, but instead they want to be like right in the fight and still be able to show everything. Like at one point the guy had a knife and you like saw the point of the knife. Again, because some people might not appreciate it because other films have tried to do similar things, like I said, and have just failed utterly. Because again, you being up so close and having people move around, it's hard to see everything. And sometimes they just kind of say F it and go with the shot that they have. And in here they took the time to really choreograph it well. They almost choreographed it around the camera, whereas other films feel like, all right, let's choreograph the fight and just film it. But they're like, no, the camera is almost part of the scene. It's the character almost. It's you know what I mean? Like the camera has to be included in the scene. It has to be included in the choreography for close up, choreographed fights like that, if that makes sense. So, I wish I had a clip to show you of it, but, if I find a clip on YouTube of it at any point, I will try to either share it as a post on YouTube or, put a link underneath the description. But yeah, I'm trying to think if I have anything else I want to say. I mean, it's not a perfect movie, but most movies aren't perfect. I think the word for this movie is effective. It does what it needs to do very effectively, and it's definitely worth watching in the theater. Now, here's when it comes to my ranking, premium ticket, standard ticket, discounted ticket, free ticket. Definitely not a free ticket, definitely not a discounted ticket. The thing about this movie is I don't know how rewatchable it'll be, and I don't know how the experience will be watching it at home rather than in theaters. Is it a better theater experience than home watching experience? Is this a film that I could see myself rewatching a million times? Probably not. Especially compared to movies I've already watched this year, like Megan. Mainly, that's the only one that I'm thinking is maybe above this one at this point. But I don't know about that yet. Whereas Megan is one of those movies I feel like I could rewatch a million times. I could rewatch when it comes out. I would definitely buy it. So I'm going to give this a standard ticket, not quite a premium ticket. It's definitely worth the price of admission. It's worth watching in theaters. But, when it comes to my ranking, the way I describe premium ticket is like worth watching in theaters and buying on VOD, Blu-ray, DVD, all that stuff. Am I going to buy this on Blu-ray, VOD, DVD? I don't think so. Whereas a movie like Megan, I think I will, because a movie like that, I feel like I would rewatch more times. But that being said, this is still a really, really great film. Really great. So definitely watch this in the theaters if you have the opportunity. But yeah, if you're wondering why I'm like talking about Megan right now, it's because I'm actually planning on doing a ranking at the end of the year of literally every film I watched. So as I watch movies, like every time I watch a new movie, I kind of rank it, either higher or lower than the other movies on my list, depending on how I feel about it. That way, I have it all now, and that way I don't have to go back at the end of the year and be like, all right, what are all the movies I watched? Oh, no, it's all on a list right here, and it's all already ranked. So, yeah, sorry if that was confusing there. But yeah, have you seen 2023's Plane? What did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you in the middle? I definitely very much loved this movie. It is, it's one of those movies that probably won't end up on my top 10 list, but most likely my honorable mentions of 2023, because like I say in every review, there are a lot of really great movies coming out this year. So, it's going to be hard for this one to actually end up making the list, but not to say it's a bad film by any means. Have you not seen this movie? Are you planning on watching it anytime soon? Why or why not? I would love to know down in the comments below. And yeah, I think that's all I got for you. Leave a like on the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and I will see you in the next one.